Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Great to be here with you. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com, sam@whatsrightshow.com. And then, of course, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at What's Right Sam. A big executive order day today at the White House, and I think the top highlight for me is Trump doing exactly what I have said from the beginning ought to be a target of this administration, which is to go after the elections. You got to clean it up, folks. When I was on with Steve Gruber a couple weeks ago, on Real America's Voice, and I said, hey, listen, we got California's a mess. A lot of people there are thinking about voting, Republican. This is before even the big polling numbers that came out over the weekend. And I said, look, California could shift rightward. And he asked me, well, what's it going to take? And I said, same day voting and voter ID. I mean, two things, plain and simple. And the way you get it done is the federal government the president can condition funds being released to states on X, Y, and Z happening. And if I were Trump, I would pick my battles. If California wants, 20, 30, 40 billion dollars to help with the wildfires, say, okay, you want help from my administration? Fix your elections. The only way to deal with these Democrat miscreants is to hold their feet to the fire. I'm convinced these folks win in large part due to fraud. And one of the first things, and this is, you cannot forget the test case for this, or the proof of concept, is Florida. DeSantis gets elected, okay, by a hair. Do you remember this? His first time he's running against Andrew Gillum, who later, by the way, was caught in a hotel room with a young man who was not his wife. I'll put it that way. Okay, coked out of his mind, didn't know where he was, who he was, what planet he was on. Guy almost became governor. And in comes DeSantis, and one of the first things that he does, he recognizes it essential to his survival, his political survival, is to clean up the elections in Florida. And immediately commences to do that, cleans out the voter rolls. And ever since then, Democrats have been basically dead on arrival, politically speaking, certainly statewide. When you clean up the ballots, it turns out that crazy wackadoodle left-wing liberalism ain't popular. It doesn't sell. But they make us believe it sells because suddenly, magically, these elections turn out, particularly in places like California. Wisconsin, that's another one. Georgia had some funny stuff, right? The list goes on and on. Now, what states do in state elections, in local elections, that's up to the states. But when it comes to federal offices, well, we do have a say. There are standards. You are required to be a citizen. You can be required to prove citizenship. None of that is illegal or unethical. Now, yes, of course, I see this executive order and I already see, 300 Democrat-funded lawyers lining up to oppose us in the courts with 300 different liberal left-wing wackadoodle judges fully on the ready to start issuing orders to put the stop to this. But the risk is that the executive order cannot be challenged as easily if there is consent by the state. Again, if the president conditions money, resources, etc., that are within his control and discretion on certain action, and the state says, yes, we will do that, now there is a contract formed, and you can't just go in and undo it by one or two crazy judges. So this is the way forward on this, folks. It's huge. It's important. It's everything that we need to see. And I wrote on X just before I got on the a show, I saw somebody posting about this, and I said, inject all of this straight into my veins. This is it. The executive order Trump signed cuts federal funding to states who refuse to take steps to secure their election. And by the way, Department of Homeland Security resources can be used to ensure that illegals are not voting. There should be a citizenship question on the voting forms for the first times. And the Department of Justice has been instructed to vigorously pursue election crimes, especially in states who are not compliant with federal law. This is big. Now, I will tell you, the next executive order, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly. Archer, Devin Archer, he's the business companion to Hunter Biden. They were in the Rosemont Seneca Partners business together. These are the guys that I guess, co-conspirators in shaking down the Ukrainian energy guys on behalf of Joe Biden et al. And Archer was the one that got convicted, and Hunter got, what did he get? He got a supposed pardon by the Biden auto pen and, white glove treatment by everyone inside the Biden Department of Justice. So Trump has quickly, it's been a busy morning, I tell you. This is the guy who has, who basically took the fall for all the nastiness that the Biden crime family engaged in. And here you go. So Trump has given him a pardon. Now people are saying, why do this? This guy's also a Democratic operative, whatever. I can tell you right now, I understand what's going on. They want to be able to get this guy to talk. So what they're doing is giving him a blanket pardon. They're going to let him off. Now he can talk. He can testify. He can give evidence. He hasn't been afraid to do it before, but now really all the gloves come off, and he can be compelled. He can literally be compelled to give his testimony. And based on the way that Devin Archer was treated by Joe Biden, by Hunter Biden, by all of the Bidens that benefited from the shady stuff he was doing, right? They were all on the take. The whole family. And this is the guy that ends up getting sent to prison. Trust me, he is no fan of this Klan. And I think it's part of a broader strategy by the Trump administration, the Trump Department of Justice, to bring the Bidens to some kind of account for everything that they've done. You already heard it. They're going to challenge the pardons. They're going to file these cases. They're going to force the Biden family members to defend themselves in court to assert the legality and good standing of the pardons that they received. And it's going to turn into quite a mess. I don't know necessarily. We'll see. The law on undoing some of these pardons is not clear. It's unprecedented. And we've done the legal analysis before, and I may, if we've got time here, get to it a little bit after the break. But suffice to say, if nothing else comes of it, but that these Biden family members have to lawyer up, pay $100,000 retainer to a top, white shoe, white collar criminal defense firm, and start doing some of the things that many patriots, Trump-supporting, America-loving patriots had to do in the last 4 years under the Biden regime rule. The shoe's on the other foot. I kind of like that. And I think there's some justice in making them have to fight to clear their names. And based on everything I've seen, I got to tell you, these people, if it weren't for the pardon, ought to be prosecuted, ought to be put in prison. And there it is. By the way, breaking news here. The White House says that Ukraine and Russia have agreed to a Black Sea ceasefire deal. We'll report the updates on that here as the What's Right show progresses. this afternoon. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Be back in a moment.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends, and happy Tuesday. I woke up actually this morning, very early, I think around 3:30. And what I do is I just kind of quickly get on my phone, see what news is going on. But I thought in my head, thank goodness it's the weekend. It took about like 3 or 4 seconds when I realized that it's only Tuesday morning. I guess that's the universe telling me that my Monday was hellacious. Anyway, folks, welcome back to the show. Great to have you here on the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234. That's the number. And it doesn't matter if you're in California, wherever you are, that's our main office phone number. If you are a listener of the show, call that number, 702-820-1234. Offices in Nevada and California, in beautiful Las Vegas, and I would say equally beautiful in a different way, Newport Beach, California. This is the only law firm to trust for your injury case. Don't go to the woke insurance company that doesn't care about you one bit. Don't talk to them. Don't get sucked into their trap. Get some help and put somebody on your side. And that somebody is Sam and Ash Injury Law. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. So just a brief aside here, reported before the break that Ukraine and Russia have agreed to a ceasefire deal in the Black Sea. This is to ensure safe navigation. Remember, the Trump administration is very big on making sure that trade routes are open. This includes the now much discussed Signal group chat among high-ranking administration officials debating when and how to bomb the hell out of the Houthis. Now, I want to get to that in a moment because, of course, yesterday I just touched on it, and the more I learn about it, the more actually I am furious with most conservatives who are all piling on Trump and piling on the people here in this chat, complaining that this was some sort of giant amateurist mistake, and how dare they be so reckless as to distribute war plans on a text chain. So I have my response to, I'm going to get to that, I think, at the bottom of the hour here after the break at 1:30. But first, I want to say something about these ceasefire negotiations, because Steve Witkoff, who is a phenomenally successful man, I realize this guy is a big-time businessman, developer, and is he a billionaire, Robbie? Well, if he's not a billionaire, he's up there, okay? He could be, Steve Witkoff could be doing anything. This is no one's slouch, and he is Trump's top negotiator and envoy, who has, among other things, been talking to Russia, been talking to Ukraine, is working on a deal. And he's getting pilloried almost every day by the media, by even conservatives who are outraged that he says nice things about Putin and that he says occasionally some critical things of Ukraine. And how dare he get this wrong? It's like every day I see some, milquetoast Republicans complaining about this. For the umpteenth time, please let me explain to you how a negotiation works. I was in one yesterday. I had an opponent in a negotiation yesterday. And as I was extorting him, I'm not going to say that. Well, it was. As I was extorting him for money, because that's what I do. I negotiate with people for money. As I am pulling hundreds of thousands of dollars from him, and he's a lawyer, what was I doing? Rob, you want to guess? I had a high absurd number. He had a low number. And I kept coming down off my hypes. I kept telling, I'm doing this because I like you. I wish I didn't like you. I actually like you. I like doing cases. I was so flattering. And okay, and this negotiation, of course, is not playing out publicly in front of the world's media. But if it were, what would I be doing on behalf of my client in that negotiation, dealing with this opponent that I am trying to get a lot of money out of as an attorney, representing my client's interests? Anybody? Because let me break it down to you. It's very simple. I would be making public statements everywhere I go saying, and we'll call him Mr. X. Oh, Mr. X is a wonderful lawyer, is wonderful. He represents a great insurance company. They are great. I would be just the most delightful and complimentary person because I know that Mr. X is listening and he's paying attention. And I know I don't have any credibility if I go that piece of crap. That guy, he is terrible. Now, there are, by the way, lawyers that do that. They do talk smack about people, and they're not very good negotiators. There are also people in the diplomatic corps, meaning professional diplomats, the kind of losers that staffed the Biden apparatus, and they do the same thing. They want to negotiate with, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, but they precede any negotiation with the Saudis by trashing them and saying nasty things about their king. I'm not here to defend the Saudis. I'm not here to defend Putin. I'm just defending the process because I'm not a freaking idiot. And one thing that you guys do when you listen to this show, you have the benefit of hearing not just from a radio talk show host, but from a practicing attorney. So I'm giving you just, common sense, practical insight into how these things work. And, I'm getting a little thin, those of you watching here, seeing me on camera. This hair isn't as thick as it used to be. Got to be careful about pulling it out. I'm pulling it out over the idiotic things that I hear from people like Brit Hume, who for years, Mr. Brit Hume on Fox News. My name is Brit Hume. I like Brit. Nice guy. Met him. Superhuman being. But he doesn't know anything. He is just a media clown. And a lot of people out there, that's all they see is, oh, it's a binary thing. Putin's bad. Criticize Putin. Ukraine good. I don't even care what is true or not. Do we want to end the conflict? Do we need to bring both sides together? Does one side want something totally radically different from the other side? The answer is, of course, yes. So do we keep rolling a war that's killing 10,000 plus people a month? Maybe, right? I mean, some of the numbers are horrifying depending on which ones you believe. Do we continue doing that? Or do we bring it to an end? And you're going to have to get Putin down from his position, and you're going to have to get the Ukrainians down from their position. You got to bring them into the middle. And you're not going to do that by talking smack, to use some street vernacular to appeal to Democrats out there, perhaps the Jasmine Crockett voters in Texas, talking smack about either of the two sides, and particularly not the side that has already for 4 years been on the receiving end of all U.S. opprobrium, right? Of all, Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad. So Witkoff is trying to even this out. You're seeing small incremental progress toward peace. That's what today's news is. Doesn't mean the war is ending tomorrow, but it means that they're making progress. And I just want you to, every time you hear these criticisms, I want you to hear in them what they are. which is nonsense from people who have never had to negotiate anything, probably shouldn't even go to a car dealership to buy a car without having their lawyer present. Sam and Ash, injury law. We don't do that. We won't take you to the car dealership and help you buy a car. All right, folks, be right back. I'll see you after this. All right, friends, greetings and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your injury accident case. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Me, that's right, the host of the What's Right show. I tell you, I want to say something here real fast. Just before I get to Signalgate, for me here, one of the most important things that I love is being able to get information quickly. And X, Twitter as it was formerly called, you can find me there, by the way, at What's Right Sam, is unbelievable at getting up-to-the-minute information. You get information very quickly. The problem with X is that you really, really need to have a finely tuned BS detector. And you also need to live by the old adage, fools rush in. Because I can't tell you the number of times something starts to spread on X, and it's happened to me, candidly. I'm coming to you, folks, palms up. I've learned the hard way. I get suckered into something and then have to admit that, I'm occasionally, rarely wrong, right? But I am wrong, and I get into something that just I have to think about for a while. This brilliance that I have, this brilliance that I have it's just I need to work on it sometimes. I need to beat, and in a instant news driven environment, that's tough to do. Okay, so Signalgate. What do we know? All right, we know that there is an article that came out in the Atlantic that was thrown together by the editor-in-chief there. His name's Jeff Goldberg. Jeff Goldberg is a huge Democrat. His wife worked for Hillary Clinton. He's donated more than 25 grand of his own money to Democrats over the years, okay? And he's the guy that wrote the piece about Trump. I need the kind of generals that Hitler had. This is a known, established Trump saboteur. So Jeffrey Goldberg, the allegation is that he had been added to a group chat that included, for example, Mike Waltz, who's the national security advisor, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth. And in this group chat, high-level administration officials, Hegseth being one of them, discussed the pros and cons of wiping out the Houthis in Yemen. Nothing that was shown by Jeff Goldberg amounts to war plans. It's just, the kind of stuff that you hear, honestly, administration officials, including the president himself, talking about publicly. Do we do this? What does it mean for Europe? Does it, why are we the ones taking care of it, even though this particular shipping lane through the Red Sea is more beneficial for Europe? Why is America expending resources to take care of this? There is a debate. I like that they're having a debate. I understand that not everybody can be in the same room at the same time. We're not in 1960, okay? So people are communicating on the fly. I don't trust Jeffrey Goldberg to accurately describe anything that he sees. I will only trust things that I see with my own eyes when it comes to a source like him. So when he says, oh, I can't show you, but they were discussing war plans, pardon me if I'm going to be skeptical about that. Because I am. Because this is not somebody who has demonstrated any kind of, measure. I'll tell you what else we know. We know that this Signal group chat is and has been approved as recently as by the Biden administration as appropriate for governmental communications. We know that. And we also know that this guy was feeding information. He knew he was on the chat. He was on the chat for quite a while before they discovered that he was on it. How he got added to it, we don't know. But instead of saying, hey guys, shouldn't be here, he followed it. He surveilled what he was being told. If this was, I don't think anybody's really saying this, Robbie, if he was even accidentally getting, classified, quote unquote, classified information. Now, the White House disputes that anything here was classified, but if he were, and he didn't say something and didn't block it and continued to receive it, he could be charged with a crime. But what did he do instead? Well, reports today, we find out that he's been leaking this out to Democrats in Congress, and they have been using it to set up members of the Trump administration in questioning and in public statements to try to trap them into, lying about things that, of course, then the Democrats intended to use to push for certain members of the administration's ouster, right? Removal. That's why you're hearing that Mike Waltz should be eliminated, should be removed. And I am not going to participate in this as a Republican. If it is a stupid error, it's a stupid error. I don't understand. I mean, have I sometimes texted the wrong person? Yes. Was it, am I the vice president of the United States? No. But even lawyers, sophisticated lawyers, have on the bottoms of their emails, it's in their email signatures, if you've accidentally received this information, please immediately notify us and destroy the contents of the email. It's attorney-client privilege. And why do they have it in there? It's a CYA. And by the way, these are top lawyers. They're people that are making millions of dollars a year at high-level firms like Latham and Watkins and just big multinational firms. They have it in there not just as a CYA. They have it in there because it happens all the time. Don't pretend it doesn't in this electronic world. And my friend Ed texted me about this just before I was going on Real America's Voice with Steve Gruber, was on with him just before the program, so I couldn't get back to you, Ed. Forgive me, but he goes, why does this happen? And he talks, because my friend used to be in the Nixon administration, was in the White House and was in the comms, on the comms team, and talking about how the White House Signal Corps used to control all these communications, how there was very strict protocols for all this. I know, but it is 2025 now. I don't want to be dismissive, but this is the reality. People are using devices, and it's pick your poison. And you've got, Pete Hegseth is somewhere, on a trip or in some city, and JD Vance is somewhere else. And this entire fake outrage from the left that there are secure rooms where you're supposed to do this stuff, duh. And I'm like, oh yeah, so in 2025, you're supposed to get the entire government apparatus, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, whatever it is, all together in the same room. And the only place they're allowed to talk about this is this one room. And by the way, where was any of your outrage when you had literally the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when you had Mark Milley telling the Chi-Coms, oh, we're not going to follow Trump's. Oh, we're going to disregard any orders from the President of the United States, just so you know. These same people heralded that as bravery, called Mark Milley a hero. All of these people were silent, speaking of communications, when Lloyd Austin went and played Where's Waldo at Walter Reed Hospital. Nobody could find him. It's like, oh, where's Lloyd Austin? I don't know. Hiding somewhere in the bushes. Oh no, he's having surgery and he's out for the count, and we don't have somebody we can call at the Department of Defense who has had the executive power of the defense secretary moved off to him or her or it or they, them, or whatever it was over there. No, this just all this. And this is why this morning, and I love Alan to death. I was on with him as I am every Tuesday morning. And I know I got a lot of emails. Sam, you were feisty with Alan. I'm sorry. I just wasn't going to play the game, which is conservatives out there wanting to express their credibility, which Alan no doubt has, and saying things like, well, this really is just not okay, and what a terrible error, and if Biden did this, we would all hell would break loose. The difference between Biden and that administration and this one is that Biden's entire administration was run like a clown show. The problem with the administration was run poorly, and the ideology behind it, the motivations for doing anything that they did, was catastrophic and was destructive to American interests. And I'm supposed to hear, as a conservative, get all worked up because I'm reading, again, the texts that I am reading are very much in line with the America First agenda that I voted for. They are reasonably deliberating whether or not, the Europeans ought to get a pass on this one, whether or not we ought to come and save the Euros again. That's what came out of this for me. So nothing here really makes them look particularly bad, other than the fact that they meant to add Jamison Greer instead of Jeffrey Goldberg, both of them going by JG in this guy's phone, which is a dumb mistake, but not disqualifying, certainly not disqualifying in my book. There, I've said my piece about it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Hi, Sam Mirejovsky here. The What's Right show is on. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at What's Right Sam. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. So one thing I have to say, it's a Doge angle to the Signal Gate kerfuffle here. And I'm going to play this clip here today. This is important because it's actually part of my theory, my working theory, that this scandal here, this this fake controversy that's being ginned up and weaponized against the Trump administration, intended to, at a very critical time, get top administration officials off their game, was, already ready to go, right? They had, for example, John Ratcliffe already scheduled to testify to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and the release of this story by this Goldberg guy at The Atlantic was timed to coincide with these hearings. The problem is that some of the accusations, like, I can't believe they were using an app on their phones, sort of fell on deaf ears because, well, listen.
So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was Signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Well, there it is, right? So clearly permissible, and you see that the Democrat on the committee immediately, I think that was Mark Warner, immediately moving to shut that down. Didn't want to hear any of that. Now, what's the Doge angle? See, I think one of the huge takeaways here is that people in our government, and to my friend Ed's point about how things used to be done back in the 60s when he was at the White House, we don't have, it's all this new technology, all these new devices. But because everything in the government is done so extremely inefficiently, we do not have a secure means of communication. That's the reality of it here, right? We don't have it. Scott Adams mentioned this today. He goes, hey, one of the things we're going to learn is that our government officials really have no secure way of communicating or effectively, efficiently communicating unless they're in the same room. And this is why, by the way, Washington, D.C. insiders keep saying, oh, they should all have been in the same room. We have SCIFs, right? The secure rooms that, that that are fully sealed and can't, have any listening devices in them, etc. And it's because they know, everybody knows that there's no good, secure way of doing it. Remember Hillary? Now, Hillary kept saying in her defense of using private email and a private email server was that it was more efficient. And the reason that she got a pass by so many people is because A, she had political allies, but B, it was plausible. Of course, she had other reasons for why she was using her private email server. She didn't want those emails being logged by the government and preserved because she was doing shady stuff. But Doge is quickly finding out that everything in our government, particularly related to technology, is an ancient relic. This is Stone Age stuff. And, Producer Robbie, you were obviously in Afghanistan and deployed in intelligence. And I don't think I'm really revealing a big secret there, but you guys didn't do anything over your phones. Yeah? Okay. Your computers that you had, you've told me this, are garbage. Right? I mean, and by the way, yeah, old black and green screen computers. At the same time, when, as a consumer, Robbie, you could buy at the store, you probably had a beautiful Apple laptop with a high-res screen. But you weren't even allowed to have phones in Afghanistan, right? Because your base had top secret info. And those devices could be hacked. Guess who knew this? I don't know. Osama bin Laden? Remember, Osama bin Laden didn't have a single online device in his hiding place? Why? He knew. So it's all hackable. And so here's my takeaway. I don't know what you want. We're on day. What are we on day? What is it, 68 or 62? 62. We are on day 62 of the new Trump administration out of 1,460 days. And let that sink in. My gosh, a lot going on, a lot happening, a lot of progress. But I'm just bringing it up because one of the top things that we need to do is radically shift our government into the 21st century with this technology and come up with secure forms of digital communication. And good thing we've got a technology genius who has an office inside the White House. Read Elon Musk. It's yet another project for Doge. And what are the Dems going to do? If tomorrow a news story comes out saying that Elon Musk is taking on the project of coming up with a secure communication system, the Stop the Oligarchy people are going to literally all start having cows in unison, claiming that Musk is hacking the government and whatnot and all this nonsense. I mean, who do you trust? You trust Musk or some unnamed, faceless, nameless contractor that is charging millions upon millions of work that in the real world would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to achieve and to complete? And they'll do it worse. We need to rethink. Like, that is, by the way, that is a conservative take on this, chat leak drama. Let's build better in our government. Why does our government have to suck? That's the thing. So and you know what, by the way, the Trump people are going to learn from this and go, yeah, we got to come up with a fix. And trust me, right now, as we speak, Elon Musk is already talking about this. So I was on with Steve Gruber, of course. I mentioned that on One America News just before I went on air here. And right before me, Mark Mitchell was on. He is with Rasmussen Reports. This is the one pollster in the country who got things right. Tough act to follow, to be honest. So Mark Mitchell was on talking about the presidential approval numbers, and it reminded me of Harry Enton talking about these numbers last night on CNN. So I'm going to play that for you when we come back and give you a little perspective on approval ratings for Donald Trump. This is shaping up to be an extremely popular presidency, and you wouldn't know it listening to the Democrats. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. All right, friends, welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Stoked to be here. Happy to be here with you as always. This beautiful Tuesday that I thought when I woke up early this morning was already the weekend. So, yes, not good, but happy to be here. I'm kind of a TGIM guy, but yesterday took a bite out of me. I'm not going to lie. So here we go. We are in day, what is this? I just had it in front of me, the numbers, 62 of 1,460 days total of Trump 2.0. So we're at the very beginning. And a lot of presidents talk about their first 100 days. And I would say, I think, unfortunately, fortunately for us and unfortunately for the Democratic Party, Trump has done more in his first 50 days than any president in recent memory has done in their first 100. So things are looking great. This guy is a man on fire. Now, how is this translating into public support? And I was mentioning to you that I was on with Steve Gruber over at One America News just before I was on air here. Mark Mitchell was on right before me. He's with Rasmussen Reports, the most accurate pollster in 2024. This guy had it right all along. And, he did. This is the guy that went on and said, I don't really see the Kamala Harris bump. I don't really see the surge. He had it right consistently. Trump polling ahead of Kamala, polling ahead of Biden, all that stuff. Okay. So he was on. It got me thinking about the poll numbers. So I'm watching, sort of in the green room, preparing to be on after him. And it reminded me that last night on CNN, they ran some numbers about this, or today, actually, it was this morning. Harry Enton, the Trump the data guy, the pollster for, he's not a pollster, but he's a data guy for CNN. He was on with Sarah Sidner, and he was reviewing the polling numbers here for Trump. And this is on CNN, and even they have to admit it's looking pretty good.
I think sometimes it's important to do a little bit of reality check and take a little different spin at the numbers. I'm going to do that right here because all we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one, and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. What are we talking about? His net favorable rating right now comes in at -4 points. Compare that to where he was when he won in November of 2024 when he was at -7 points, or March of 2017 when he was at -10 points. So when you compare Trump against himself, he's actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom of the trough. And of course, that's so important because Donald Trump, historically speaking, has had his numbers underestimated. So I think it's very important to compare him to himself to understand he's actually more popular now than he was when he won, or certainly where he was at this point back in his first term. The bottom line is Trump is more towards the ceiling than he is towards the floor.
Well, I want to tell you that Mark Mitchell again, Rasmussen reports, has Trump somewhere in the +2, +3 range, which puts it off by, let's say, 6 or 7 or even 8 points below where CNN is measuring him. That's how corrupted this data is. Oh, who am I going to believe? It's not just because I like Trump. I'm going to go with Mark because Mark got it right. The planet that I am on is planet reality. So I reward success. I reward people who have a track record of being more right than wrong. I'm not going to listen to the CNN polling. Are you kidding me? But even they have to admit that the trend line that they have, I think that they have artificially lower than it is by design. Their trend line is looking good for Trump. It's depressing if you're a Democrat, completely depressing. So where are we at with this? Well, is it just Trump? Because one of the things that's being talked about right now are all of these, congressional special elections, and there's a judge's race in Wisconsin. There are certain special elections to fill posts vacated by Trump administration officials that has got a lot of attention, and these things are being called, these are little mini referendums on Trump's agenda. Could these be opportunities for Democrats to pick up seats in Congress, which of course would be bad for Republicans? And this is the kind of stuff that people are thinking about. And what I think will matter is right track numbers and Congress. Let's start with Congress specifically, because it's interesting. Again, people are not very pleased with Congress, but particularly not very pleased with Democrats.
What about Congress? Because those are the folks who are up in 2026. And take a look here. The Dems versus the Republicans on the generic congressional ballot. Back in November of 2020, when Democrats won, it was +5 Democrats. Tied in November of 2022, +1 in November of 2024 when Republicans maintain control. And then you look at March of 2025. This number looks a lot more like 2022 or 2024 when Republicans won control of Congress. The bottom line is, yes, Donald Trump's approval rating is lower than compared to a lot of his predecessors, but it's higher when compared to himself. A lot of folks say the country's on the right track, and the generic congressional ballot looks a heck of a lot more like when Republicans win than when Democrats win.
It will be interesting to see if any of what just happened with these leaking of the text plays into it in a later poll. But this is very telling.
This is very telling. At least at this point, Republicans are still in the catbird seat.
Yeah. Okay. And again, these numbers are artificially good for Democrats. Right? They have Democrats up. They're artificially bad for Republicans and certainly artificially bad for Trump because these are polls done by CNN and they're oversampling on the Dems. I think we all learned a lot about polling, side note, during the last election. And whose name comes up, I love bringing her up because this woman was so terrible in her polling that she literally retired following 2024. Ann Seltzer, who was, there's so many mainstream, conservative, so-called Republican, media people who were like, Ann Seltzer is reputable. Ann Seltzer's the best in the business. Ann Seltzer. What did she have? Suddenly Kamala Harris up by like 20 or 12 or what, some big number. It was all in Iowa and Trump won the state. And back to, reasonable pollsters like Rasmussen looking at it going, I don't think so. I'm not saying Ann Seltzer did this poll, but I'm saying this is CNN's numbers, okay? So what about, I'm saving this one for last, right track, wrong track. This is big. Right? Because the general mood of the country will dictate how people feel about, the party that's in power. When you have, remember, I talked about this a lot a year ago. I mean, the presidential election a year ago was still far out on the horizon. When we were in March of 24, we were in the primaries still, finishing up. We were months away from much of anything really heating up in the general. And I kept saying, folks, disregard the Biden v. Trump polling. It's too early. Look at the right track, wrong track. This is so bad. And people are absolutely depressed about where this country is headed. And the party in power will get nailed for this. And so here is Harry Enton at CNN talking about the right track, wrong track polling now.
What is a metric that might get at understanding at how popular he may actually be? So let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Marist, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Marist has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof. And if you were to compare it to when presidents have historically been reelected, of course, Trump is not constitutionally eligible to run for reelection, but I think it sort of puts it in perspective. 42% of the country says the country is on the right track when the incumbent party is reelected. And also keep in mind, back when Kamala Harris lost and the Democrats were turned out of power, only about 27 to 28% of the country said the country was on the right track. The bottom line is right now, a much higher percentage of the country says we're on the right track.
It's going up, up, and away because guess what? Trump is on the right side of a huge number of 80-20 issues, and he is correctly picking his battles and focusing on the stuff that is widely popular. That's the story. And, I'm going to get to this. I promised I was going to talk about this because there's been a development in the Khalil Mahmoud deportation case. And it has to do with what these students for Palestine at Columbia University were doing right in the lead up to October 7th. And that perhaps they were tipped off by this. None of siding with, this is where the Democrats are currently, siding with terrorist sympathizers, aiders and abettors of terrorism is not a winning position. Majority of the country thinks that we need to get rid of people who are hostile to our interests. And it ties into all of this. So we'll get into that. The congressional races, the elections, special elections, all of it here in the time remaining. My goodness, I got my work cut out for me. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Look, we have a few elections coming up here that are making some people nervous. I don't know if I'm that nervous, but the one in Wisconsin, there is a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. And the Associated Press is calling it a referendum not just on Trump or the new administration, but on Elon Musk himself, who has become one of Trump's top backers. And, this court, by the way, really important position because the Republican-backed candidate, Brad Schimmel, has openly courted Trump's endorsement. And it's important because this could be the swing vote on the court. And if the court goes left in Wisconsin, a liberal court there could sign off on some gerrymandering in the districts and basically cost Republicans seats in the House of Representatives. So this is an example of where a state election has consequences for the national political scene. Now, Scott Pressler is in Wisconsin. He left Pennsylvania as on the ground in Wisconsin, and he's going door to door with his political team fighting for this election. So, I mean, I could give you an idea of just how important it is. So that's one that is coming up soon. Florida's 6th congressional district. This is a lot of Republican hand-wringing. This is coming up in April 1st, 2025, so in about a week. This is the, this is the election here that replaces Mike Walls. Walls is the is the guy that was on the group chat, on the Signal group chat, who is the national security advisor now. He resigned on the 20th of January to join the Trump administration. So this is this look, people are freaking out about this. This includes Flagler, Florida, and Volusia. These two counties, I've been to Flagler County, and I can tell you this is Trump country. My gosh. Do you know what the index there is? It's R+14. And yet you've got like Punchbowl News, Jake Sherman, these people freaking out about saying, oh, Republicans are nervous about this because these special elections are low turnout. Low turnout. Republicans aren't hand-wringing over this district, okay? The Republican won the district in the last special election by 6 points. Okay, the lead there is doubled since then. So then we have another congressional district. This one is also, the election will be held on April 1st. This is Matt Gaetz' seat. And you remember he was elected to be, was nominated to be Attorney General, and then he withdrew. Primary there held on the 28th. This has a partisan lean of R+19. I don't know. I think that's probably looking pretty safe. Arizona 7th congressional district. So there's a Democrat there that passed away, Raul Grijalva. He just died on the 13th of March. This one will be September 23rd in the general election. So that's a Democrat seat. Don't have to worry about that too much. Texas 18th, again, a Democrat seat. This is Sylvester Turner. He died on March 5th, right after attending Trump's, not the State of the Union speech. So he's got to call for the election there. Abbott's going to do that, probably November 4th. Then we have, Elise Stefanik in New York. It's expected between April and May. The exact date is to be determined. Stefanik became the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under the Trump administration. Kathy Hochul, the governor, has to call a special election within 70 to 80 days. So that district is solidly Republican as well. So it really just depends on who they run. So Republicans and Democrats are each down about 2 seats. Republicans have folks dying, okay, and Republicans have had folks leave to be in the administration. So if there are any toss-up seats, the Republicans would be favored. So that's what it is. Oh, by the way, I need to clear, the seat isn't vacant yet because Elise Stefanik hasn't been confirmed yet as the ambassador. Thank you, Robbie, for that note. She hasn't been confirmed, so she's still in the seat. So she still counts as a Republican, and that's why they haven't set the date, I presume, for that election. So again, I'm going to go back to sort of the high level. It tends to be in midterm elections, which this isn't. These are special elections, but there's a handful of them happening. That it is a referendum on the party in power. It's still a referendum on how people feel about this administration. And look, Republicans they control the Congress, they control the House of Representatives and the Senate, and certainly they've got the executive branch. And they're fighting against Democrat obstruction. And the Democrats seem to be doubling down on this nonsense, holding tours, Bernie Sanders and AOC, holding these performance rallies, being against the oligarchy, aligning themselves with terrorists that go around shooting at Teslas and burning car dealerships with Molotov cocktails. Do I think there is any risk in a Republican district that Republicans not show up? No, I don't. And I particularly think that Democrats are still stuck very much in 2016 thinking on a lot of these big issues. Chief among them is immigration. I can tell you, and I don't care how hard Judge Boasberg in D.C. fights and fights and fights Trump on immigration, and there's a battle brewing, keeps getting hotter by the day. Trump is on the right side of the immigration issue. It's an 80-20 issue. Nobody is crying over the Venezuelans deported over and sent to El Salvador, okay? And by the way, the more that gets out, it always turns out things are better for Trump in the long haul, right? The first reactions to things tend to be, kind of bad for Trump, or can be. And then as things develop, it gets better, particularly with the stuff going on in Colombia and the Palestinian protesters. My gosh, stay tuned. You want to hear that up next. Speaker Mike Johnson is floating the idea of defunding federal courts that are, let's say, hotbeds of anti-American activism. I think this is a great idea. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Now, couple of things to mention here. Speaking of these crazy leftists on the courts, the circuit courts that are issuing all these injunctions, the Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, this is the big group on campus at Columbia that has been leading the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish protests, because it's not just about the war. These folks out there are blatantly anti-Semitic. But I don't want to get into all these details. The point here is there is there's been a lawsuit, 79-page complaint that's been filed in the Southern District of New York, brought under the Anti-Terrorism Act and the Alien Tort Statute by victims and relatives of those killed or kidnapped on October 7th. And it accuses the Students for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voice for Peace, and WOL Within Our Lifetime of being part of what it describes as a propaganda arm of Hamas. Now, that all is not so surprising. What is a little bit more surprising is that this lawsuit claims that the activists had prior knowledge of October 7th, that the protest toolkit began circulating on October 8th, a day after the Hamas attack, and that it had to have been prepared days, if not weeks, in advance. There's a document referred to as the NSJP Toolkit, which includes instructions and graphics promoting a day of resistance. My goodness, what a coinkydink. We just preparing for a day of resistance. One of these accounts, right, for the Columbia SJP, Students, for Justice in Palestine, posted on Instagram 3 minutes before the October 7th attack began. We are back. Hey, guys. Long time no chat. It had been a previously inactive account. Again, you tell me, coincidence or not? I was talking to Alan about this, Alan Stock, this morning on Vegas at 8, right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. And talking to him, I brought this up and I said I would be getting into it. And Alan said, oh, yeah, they had all the posters ready to go. I mean, it was suspicious from day one. But now the lawyers seem to have proof that these groups, had some, some actually advance notice of the actions that Hamas would take. And this is wild, okay? This is wild. And look, if you are part of a student group that colluded with Hamas to be a spokes entity for a terrorist organization that was communicating with these groups in America, all right? I think you're out. If you have a visa, if you have if you're here on a green card, if you're a guest of this country and part of the student group working in any capacity on its behalf, you're done. And this, one thing that's not clear here, the Columbia University Apartheid Divest, the CUAD, is what was led by Mahmoud Khalil, right? But this CUAD was the coalition group of which, as I understand it, these groups named in the lawsuit were members. So Khalil, the guy that has 100 lawyers now, all paid for by radical Democrats, vying to keep him in the country, fighting to save little Khalil. We got to keep him. He's a nice guy. He's from Lebanon, but he's here in the U.S. and he's going to be an American. His wife is pregnant. His American wife's got a baby. He's got a bun in the oven. Can't let go of this guy. We got to be human. So yeah, Khalil Mahmoud is the one that is organizing all these groups, acting as a sort of umbrella organization for groups that were conspiring with Hamas. You want to talk about an 80-20 issue? You want to talk about Trump? I can't tell you how many reasonable Democrats I talk to quite often who are like, yeah, this is a bridge too far. You're ending up with somebody kicking out people that seem to be nice people. You're allowed to protest, Sam. Freedom of speech. Remember when the story broke? Even conservatives were going, well, freedom of speech. And I'm like, bro, check out what the federal code says about this, what federal law says about this. Here is where Secretary of State Marco Rubio has discretion to remove a foreign national from this country, even if they've got a visa, if their presence in the U.S. is deemed to be detrimental by the Secretary of State. I went on and on. We went through all the laws, right? It's there. And the thing is, the Biden administration could have exercised and used these laws as well, but they didn't. They kept the terrorist sympathizers in the country. And the more that we learn, the more that develops in the story, the more we realize that, Trump is right. And the only way that we can get rid of these people is to quickly come and get them. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Get them out, whisk them out of the country. We got to clean this up before we turn into Great Britain, before we turn into Germany, before we turn into the Netherlands. The West is committing collective cultural suicide. And it is absolutely heart-wrenching for us logical people to watch. And under no circumstances should we invite fanatics into our country. Under no circumstances should we tolerate visa holders to be in this country who hate us. Under no circumstances should we have people here by invitation of the U.S. government, by tolerance of our government, who conspire with terrorist organizations who kill Americans, who kill Israelis, who kill Jews, Christians, and anyone indiscriminately who they feel is opposing their political agenda. It's not okay. And what do I love about Trump? The Trump administration, Donald J. Trump, is putting the Democrats in a place where they are forced to defend this. They want to be on team Khalil Mahmoud. They want to be on team Luigi Mangione. They want to be supporting these types of people. And he keeps staking a position that he knows is reasonable, but makes it sound a little bit crazy. The Democrats react anti, and then the rest of the country, by the time they figured out the issue, go, no, you know what, Trump, I think I'm more with Trump than I am with those guys over there. And I think the Democrats, I've said this over and over again, keep this up. The midterms will be a bloodbath. Every congressional seat up for grabs. And remember, if Trump can get California to clean up its elections and condition aid to California on having some more secure elections, I'm telling you, we're going to pick up seats, friends, in California like there's nobody's business. Mark my words. We're here 3 years and change away from that day, and I'm going to tell you it's going to happen. No question. I believe in this last round, there were elections that were won by Republicans, that somehow magically the Democratic machine eked out the votes. Gross. So yeah, I mean, we're going to get around this. And it's going to be great. I'm going to take a quick break here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. One thing that you are going to start to see, friends, to back up what I'm telling you about immigration, for example, that it is an 80-20 issue, that it is 80% of the people more or less aligned with what Trump is doing compared to what the Democrats want, is when Democrats, prominent Democrats seeking re-election, will start to change their tune. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Let me give you an example of this. You know a guy named Bernie Sanders? Yeah, you know that guy, from Vermont. The limousine liberal. The chateau communist. So, well, here's I got to play this. This is fascinating. ABC's The Week hosts on Sunday asks Bernie Sanders if there's anything Trump is doing that he agrees with. I know you're ragging on this Trump guy all the time, but what do you think that maybe Trump is doing right? And here's what Bernie says. Now, I'll give you, first is Bernie this week, and then we have a 2018, a 2020, and another 2020 Bernie. See how it adds up.
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks illegal immigration is appropriate.
Whoa.
Look, I think that the wall
This is old Bernie.
an absurd idea. I think it's a waste of money. I think it just fans Trump's illusions.
America cannot simply build walls. We look foolish to the rest of the world. We look foolish to Mexico.
So we are going to end the ICE raids, which are terrorizing communities all across this country. We are going to impose a moratorium on deportations.
It sure sounds like he's changing his tune a little bit versus his past statements. This is interesting, right? And why is it interesting? He's going to be 87 for the 2028 election, so I'm not sure he's going to be actually running, but he is a savvy politician. He's hung on for a long time. Even Bernie is beginning to read the room. Do I see the Democratic Party shifting en masse? I don't. And I also see that the judges who are unelected, who have nothing to lose, are pushing the crazy wackadoodle idea that they're going to stop Trump's efforts to deport bad people out of this country. Now, the latest twist in that saga, which is, of course, this Judge Boasberg is a D.C. court judge, federal court judge, that said that the planes have to turn around. And he now demanded that the Trump administration tell him exactly what the routing was, who was on board, where they stopped, where they didn't stop, what the plan was versus how it was executed. And Trump finally did it. In a filing back to the judge, he slapped him down and said, "These are state secrets, butt the heck out." Yes, this is the right approach. This is absolutely crazy. By the way, so anyway, no more information is needed to resolve any legal issue in this case, whether the planes carried 1 TDA terrorist or 1,000, or whether the planes made 1 stop or 10, simply has no bearing on any relevant legal issue. The need for additional information is not merely dubious or trivial, it's non-existent. The executive branch violated no valid order through its actions, and the court has all that it needs to evaluate compliance. Accordingly, the court's factual inquiry should end. This judge is a fanatic, and he is absolutely taking this too far. But the better part of this is reminding the judge of all the case law that he has against him. Constitutional confrontation between the two branches should be avoided whenever possible. This is a Cheney case, Cheney v. U.S. District Court, back in 2004. In Loving versus U.S., the separation of powers doctrine requires that a branch not impair another in the performance of its constitutional duties. In Nixon v. Fitzgerald, an established case, 1982, judicial deference and restraint are required to avoid undue interference with the executive branch. So this is crazy. Here's a great quote from the filing that the Trump administration put in. This is necessary to avoid the current collision course in which a single district judge has unnecessarily put himself in an awkward position that includes the difficult task of balancing the need for information in a judicial proceeding and the executive's Article 2 prerogatives, meaning the power of the presidency. This is from the 2004 Cheney case. So what's happening? They told the judge to go screw himself. That's what they did. You want all this information? Eat it. This is what I told you it's going to happen. The administration is just going to ignore. This is the peril of taking it too far. Now, there's a party out there, not the Republicans. I'm going to give you that clue. There is a party in our political system that has made taking things too far into an art form. So I said it wasn't the Republicans. Yeah, it's the Democrats. They did it with Trump. They did it with January 6th. They've done it with the environment. Everything they have to take too far. They just can't help themselves because they have advanced TDS. And if it is going to hurt Trump, or if Trump is doing anything, right? If it's a Trump initiative, if it's something happening with the Trump administration, they see it as their divine duty to rain fire down on it and to stop it. And they don't care about norms. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about laws. Are they in the right or not? They're purely evaluating it emotionally, and they loathe Trump with such passion that they're willing to throw away any remaining shreds of credibility that they have. And that is the absolute state of things. Now, I'm here to tell you the story does not end well for the people who have delusions. It doesn't. So all of these folks here who are themselves thinking, I mean, it's not just Boasberg, there are others, right? It's the Obama judge who's like, you're going to put the trans people back in the military, Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth's like, hey, I need you to report to Fort Benning at 0600 hours, learn how to operate the military, since you're an advanced military strategist now. It's so good. It's the right comeback. But I'm bringing this up to say that, these judges are pushing this stuff, and they think in their little bubble, they think that they're absolutely on the right side of things. And they're not. They're not. It's going to be, I think when the history books are written about this decade, this will be one of the biggest chapters, and it really hasn't begun to unfold yet. It certainly is going to be taught in every constitutional law course here on out. It will redefine law in this country. And remember, just a quick thing, right? Law is, because we have the system that we have, right? Because we have common law and we have, statutory law that's passed by Congress or by a particular state, like our assembly and our upper chamber here in Nevada. We have law, statutory law, written law, and then we have court decisions. And those court decisions interpret the law and adjust the law accordingly. So you have rules that get put down through the court decisions. And a lot of this evolves and changes with how these court decisions come down and how things shake out and the reaction of it. And the judges think that they have this like ultimate say. And here's the law. Boom, here's the law. Whatever we said is the law. The problem is it has to get approved by the Supreme Court. And then vis-a-vis the executive branch has to acquiesce and say, yes, that's the law. The way the Constitution is written, the executive branch also has a say as to what is law and what isn't. They're a co-equal branch of the government. It's not just up to the courts. And so when the president says, no, that's not the law, I'm not going to do it that way, go pound sand, he changes the law. And that's why this is all so fascinating to me and important for all of us. So stay tuned on this. I'll cover this as it unfolds. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talking 40 KXNT.